Welcome to Public Relations in a Digital World. In this first week, we're going to talk a little bit about introductions, course overview, week one assignment, and week one lesson. A little bit about me. My name is Ginger Palmisano, and I'm glad to be your instructor this month. I grew up in northern Kentucky, about 5 miles south of Cincinnati, Ohio, so I'm a huge University of Kentucky fan. My heart bleeds blue for my Wildcats, though I can't see many of the games down here in Florida. But when it came time to go to school, I looked at those gray skies over the winter and the cold winter months, and I said, I think I'll go to Florida for school. So I did. I went to Rollins College and got my paralegal degree, which is here in Central Florida. And then I stayed here and started to develop my career. And as I developed my career, I realized that I needed to get my undergraduate degree, and law just really wasn't for me. I enjoyed my experience as a paralegal, and I think it's really helped me in the business world, but it wasn't something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life. So I'm sure, like many of you, I said, well, okay, now what? So I determined that I was going to get my undergraduate degree in theater, performing, and communications. And so I did at Pensacola Christian College, which is up in the panhandle of Florida. I didn't go too far, I just got a little closer to the beach. And so I got my undergraduate there, and I was offered a position on faculty there and started teaching there for them. And while I was doing that, I got my master's degree with them as well. So I have my MA with Pensacola Christian College in communications and theater, and then went back into the business world, worked for a couple of Fortune 100 companies, and again determined that I needed a little bit more education to round out my kind of overall career strategy, and went to Rollins College to get my MBA. So back in Central Florida I went, and really have enjoyed the ride as far as education goes. So again, like many of you, I have been there. I have been returning to school from the workplace and working full time while in school and balancing family and all of those things. And I would say, in fact, I know all of your professors for this program have been in that boat. We are all very familiar with how difficult it can be to balance your family and your education and your work and working long hours and trying to fit in those times to do studying and discussion board posts and replying to videos and things like that. And so we are very sensitive to that. When you have issues that come up, and you will, it's just life is like that. But when you have issues like that, please reach out to us and let us know, even if it's just to talk you down from the ledge a little bit. We're happy to do that and to help you find strategies that will work for you. And not every strategy is going to work for every person. And so we totally do our best to help you overcome those obstacles and to help create a successful environment for you to be able to complete this program. A little bit about my career background. As I mentioned, I worked for a couple of Fortune 100 companies. I worked for Marriott Vacation Club International headquarters here in Orlando, and it was there that I started to develop my overall career strategy, I guess, if you will, to work in public relations, advertising, and marketing. And I worked in that division, really saw a lot of exciting things happen in that industry as well as in my personal growth and my career goals. And so it was really there that I developed my passion and saw how I could use my degrees that I had to apply to this very specific discipline of public relations and marketing and advertising. And I kind of lump those together because almost every position I've had in public relations has included advertising and marketing. Usually those departments are very small and you do a lot of crossover functions. So you'll see that we pull a lot of things in for advertising and for marketing as well as public relations. After I worked for Marriott Vacation Club International, I worked for the Mouse. I worked for Mickey, and I worked in global entertainment. And what we did was we oversaw all of the parks and all of the characters, public relations, personas for not just Mickey Mouse and Minnie, but also for characters like Jack Sparrow, characters like Hannah Montana before she went crazy, things like that, that really did show me a different side of the business. And so I feel very confident that should your focus be more on artist management, public relations, or business management for public relations, I've kind of been there, done that, and I'm happy to help guide you and give you advice in any way that I can. On a personal note, I am married to that guy there in the middle, and we have 3 children. My oldest is 12. He's my stepson, and he's there in the bottom left-hand corner. He's wonderful joy. He has autism, and so my husband and I are very, very involved in autism ministry. In fact, when our non-office hours, we own a nonprofit that helps organizations become more welcoming to persons with disabilities. So we teach classes and seminars on how organizations can be more welcoming to children and to families who are dealing with disabilities of all kinds, not just autism, but of course, autism is our passion, and we're involved in the autism community and in many different disability communities, epilepsy and Down syndrome as well. In the bottom right hand corner, that's my little girl. She just turned 2, and she is a spitfire. She keeps us on our toes. It's a wonder that we ever have time to eat or do anything other than just chase her around. But she is a joy, and so we enjoy spending time with her. And then I just am getting back from maternity leave with our newest addition, who is my little girl up there in the left hand corner, and she is just a couple months old at this point, and we're just enjoying the sleepless nights, but also being parents again to a little tiny baby. And so that's a little bit of my background. So like I said, I do really understand when it comes to trying to balance your home life and your work life and your school life. Believe me when I say I've been there. I've done that. So for this month's course, our overview is week 1, we're going to look at brand biographies and analyzing PR principles. Week 2 is digital content plan and analyzing PR practices. Week 3 is promotional reports and digital content plan execution. And week 4 is engaging strategic publics and publishing content. So for your week 1 discussion, you're going to use the references that we are listed for you. There's a Forbes article and then, of course, the information in this session. You're going to use the submission form that is on the FSO platform. Please watch and follow your directions. This is great practice for you because we do ask a lot of you. This is a very fast-paced program, and we're very familiar with that. We put as many resources on as possible to be of help to you, as well as references and rubrics and discussion assignments and things like that. So please read directions very carefully. Make sure that you understand those before heading off into it. Don't let yourself fall into the trap, especially for discussions, of looking at what somebody else posted and then just going, oh, okay, that's what we need to do. Make sure you understand them for yourself. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask me those questions. Something important to remember is the initial posts for every class in this entire program are due on Wednesday by midnight Eastern Standard Time. So those of you on the West Coast or international students really need to be mindful of that East Coast time frame. Now, with that said, the assignment will not close on Full Sail Online. On Full Sail Online, it will say that the assignment will close on Sunday. That is specifically because you'll be responding to each other on that post. So if we closed the board, you wouldn't be able to respond to each other. And so remember that is something that's not really going to come up on your FSO main site, is that you've got an assignment due on Wednesdays, but you always, always, always will have an assignment due on Wednesday nights by midnight Eastern Standard Time, and that's that initial post. Then the response post comes on Sunday, and that is when the assignment will close, but also that will be in Eastern Standard Time. So please keep that in mind. I hate when people lose points just simply because they miss that Wednesday deadline. For your week 1 assignment, you're going to again use your references. You're going to be creating a personal SWOT analysis, and when you look at the submission form, that'll become a little bit more clear to you if you've never done a SWOT analysis before. Of course, if you have questions, please feel free to contact me. And then you're going to do 3 versions of a personal brand bio, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this on this session. Remember not to do beauty pageant answers. It's not, I enjoy rambling through the woods, and I enjoy walking through woods on a snowy evening, and the beach really calls to my spirit of adventure. It's not things like that. It's a very formal type of biography. Of course, you want it to be personal as well, but it is more formalized. So let's talk a little bit about definition of public relations then and now. Early definitions of public relations really haven't changed that much from what we have now. The early definition from 1976 is public relations establish and maintain mutual lines of communication, understanding, acceptance, and cooperation between an organization, its stakeholders, and its publics. Now let's talk a little bit about the difference between stakeholders and publics. A stakeholder is not somebody who goes vampire hunting. A stakeholder is someone who has a vested interest in what happens within a company. So, staff, for instance, of course, we have a vested interest in what goes on within our companies because that's where our paycheck comes from. We want to know if layoffs are coming on. We want to know if business is good. We want to know if we're going to get our bonuses, things like that. So, we have a stake we have a horse in the game, as we say in Kentucky. But we have a stake in the matter. We want to know what's happening because it impacts us. Owners, of course, of the company have a stake. Customers have a stake in the company because that's who I always go to. Nothing will irritate me more than to fall in love with a company, their brand, their products, and then they go out of business and I go, oh, now I have to source that all over again. So they have a stake in what goes on in the company. Suppliers, of course, have a stake in what goes on in the company because that's feeding their business. And then, of course, the community as well has a stake in what goes on in the company. So you can kind of start to see, oh, I see what a stakeholder is. Now, I do want to take a little pause here and let you know a stakeholder and a shareholder are not necessarily the same thing. A shareholder would have a stake in the company, so all shareholders would be stakeholders. But when you're talking about a shareholder, that's somebody who actually owns a share in a company. So I don't want you to get those two terms confused. Now, publics are a little bit different than a stakeholder because a public is somebody who doesn't care, but who you want to care. So the publics are the people who are not current customers, but who you're trying to reach to care about your company. You're trying to convert a public into a stakeholder. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you. If that doesn't, let me know. A modern PR definition is very parallel with what we just saw from the 1976 version. Public relations is a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. Now, there we go again. You can see that they lumped their stakeholders into organizations and publics remained the same because we're always with public relations trying to reach people who do not otherwise care. They don't have a horse in the game. They don't really care what goes on in our company. And it's our job as public relations professionals to make them care. So keywords there in that definition is it's deliberate. It's going to be a research-based social science. I will also be teaching you in month 6 about research and your publics and getting more into this area. So kind of tuck this into the back of your mind that it is very deliberate. It's strategic. There are planned activities and planned communication strategies. Performance. It's measured goals and measured success. That's one of the reasons why we have you do a SWOT analysis for your personal brand biography here this month just to start you off with because it's very important that you have those measured goals and measured success and that you understand how that all comes into play. And then communication. And communication is a two-way street. And so that's something that we're communicating out to the publics. We're constantly looking for feedback from those publics to say, is our message effective? Is it ineffective? What do we need to do to modify it? How are we, to reach these people who are otherwise unreached? And those kind of things. So those are some keywords to tuck in the back of your mind and start to think about as it relates in terms of your personal brand biography. And let's talk about personal branding. It is self-promotion and career advancement. And the reason that we start you off with personal branding is because if you cannot brand yourself as a public relations professional, you'll never be able to brand another company or another entity or anything like that. So it's very important that you're able to brand yourself first, then see how you can apply those things to other markets. It is about promoting yourself, events, accomplishments, victories. Even talking about your defeats can be a version of promoting yourself, lessons learned, etc. It is not bragging. I can feel that way in some of, especially for me, with my upbringing being very Southern and very, kind of a genteel upbringing, I was always taught, don't brag about yourself, don't boast about yourself, don't talk about yourself. You need to let other people talk about themselves. And so it can be very counterintuitive for some of us who grew up in that kind of atmosphere because it feels like bragging. It feels like I'm talking about myself, but I assure you that's not what it is. This is about being passionate about who you are, your work, and your goals. And a lot of times people will be asking you directly, so tell me about yourself. Oh, that always makes me feel awkward because I go, oh, I don't want to brag about myself, but I do want them to know what my accomplishments are. And so this is why we have you start to do this. You need to be able to have an answer to that question. You need to be able to speak about your biography in a way that you feel comfortable with. Messaging tactics are used by professionals to build their reputations and advance their careers. The articulation of a clear, consistent, compelling message of one's unique character, skills, and goals is very, very beneficial to this business specifically. So let's take a look at this. For instance, if you're standing in line at Starbucks and somebody says, you're kind of killing time, you're looking at the menu, you've made a little small talk about lattes versus the extra shot versus, oh, I love pumpkin spice, oh, I can't stand that, and when it's that time of year, I don't even go to Starbucks and things like that. So you've already gotten past that, and they go, well, tell me about yourself. Shortest version of this, and this is the bio you're going to be working on this week. So the shortest version, oh, I'm a former newspaper reporter trying to get into public relations. That's going to be a springboard conversation into, and tell me about yourself. So it's the Starbucks line version. The shorter version is more of your elevator speech. This is, I'm a former newspaper reporter trying to work as a public relations professional. Then you can go on with a few of your accomplishments, and you want to kind of pick up those really high level accomplishments that you've created. Then you've got your short bio. This is more if you're at a cocktail party, it's more relaxed. When you're on an elevator, there's only a short amount of time that you have to talk to somebody. Same thing when you're in a line at Starbucks. You don't have time to go into this whole thing. But if you are, at a cocktail party, or somebody asks you online over iChat or on Facebook or whatever, that, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is when you need to have that short bio on deck ready to go. Then you can go into more of an expansive version about your accomplishments, about what your goals are and what you've been able to do up to this point and where you hope to go in the future. So that gives you an idea of how you use this shorter, and shortest bio. And I will tell you from personal experience that this definitely comes in handy. I personally experienced this, but I'm going to give you an example actually from my aunt. My Aunt Becky, she worked for Duke Energy in Cincinnati, and she started there as a teller and became a vice president. Of course, she also went and got her education while she was working there and things like that, but she also did a great job of networking, and she used every opportunity to have this shortest, shorter, and short bio on deck at all times. And because of that, she actually got into an elevator one day with an executive vice president, and he said, oh, well, hey, Becky, I saw that you got a promotion. Tell me what you're hoping to do. She was able to take her shorter bio, go ahead and tell him what her educational goals were, where she was in the process of getting her educational goals accomplished, what she had accomplished for the company, what her current projects were, things like that, in a very short elevator pitch setting. By the time the executive vice president got off the elevator, he said, Becky, make an appointment with me next week because I really want to talk to you more about this. She was able to parlay that conversation into another promotion within his department, and that's really what became a turning point in her career. So when I tell you that these things are very valuable, I really sincerely mean them. And I could tell you a lot of stories from a lot of students and a lot of colleagues who have had very similar experiences. So it's really important when you're branding yourself that you introduce your personal self, your education, your work experience, your skills, your personal brand discovery, your age, your family, your location, up to your comfort level. I don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable about talking about their age or anything like that. If it's not a factor or if it's something that makes you uncomfortable, then don't include it. But if it's something you're comfortable talking about, then please feel free to do that. Discovery. What do you want to accomplish? Who is your target audience for your own brand? And develop confidence. Practice these things. Practice going over your biographies so that you're ready when those elevator pitch kind of moments happen. And then stand out. Be specific and be clear about who you are and about what you want in your career, because those things will really help you, not just to grow as a PR professional, but to grow as a professional in general. There are lots of books out there about personal branding, but very few about branding yourself professionally on the web. To be in business today, our most important job is to be the head marketer for the brand called you. And that is a quote by Tom Peters. Tom Peters has written some excellent books and excellent articles. If you have time, ... laugh out loud, to look at some of those things by Tom Peters, I encourage you to Google him, see some of the things that he's written. It'll be very valuable to you in this area of personal branding. So we'd look at your network of associations. Constantly, you've got people and content that are pushing in on you and and content that you're pushing out. How people find you online is through the content and through the people that you know. Think about your Facebook. You're constantly finding people and being found through friends of friends, through things that you like, things like that. Same thing on Twitter, same thing on Instagram, same thing on Pinterest. its tags and its blogs and its social profiles and its videos and its pigs and its professional profiles. That's why you have to be so careful with your online presence and with your online persona. I encourage you this month to go ahead and set up a separate professional persona for Facebook, for Twitter, for Pinterest, whatever it is that social media that you enjoy using. Go ahead and start working on your professional profile for that. It's going to be slightly different than your personal profile. If you have things on your personal profile that you'd rather not be found on the professional aspect of things, then start making those things private. Start working on that now, because you don't want to wait until you graduate to start going, oh, I didn't want you to see that picture of me in college. I'm really sorry. That was just, youthful indiscretion kind of thing. You want to be a professional when people do a Google search for you, when people look for you on Facebook. So some next steps are to define your interests, to write your biography, and you'll be doing that this week for your assignment. Participate in social media, participate in organizations that are going to be beneficial for your career. Start linking to those things. Look at your, this month you're going to be setting up your personal website. Start looking at blogs that you follow, or blogs that you can follow. Look at how they're set up. Look at how other PR professionals have set up their websites, and start to think about how you want your website set up. Start to think about your domain name. What do you want that to be? Do some searches and say, is that taken or is that still available? Remember, .com is always going to be your best dot reference as far as people being able to find you. You want your domain name to be very easy for people to remember. You want it to be something that they're going to be able to tuck away in their brains, not complicated in spelling, things like that, but start to look at those things. What's the objective? What's your presence? Google yourself. Look at your credibility, your accuracy and transparency. Look at your identity. What brand do you want to develop? What brand do you want to develop? So look at what your objective is. Your presence. You want to Google yourself. You want to look at your credibility, your accuracy and transparency. You want to look at what identity you want to create through your public relations presence, through your public relations career. What kind of brand do you want to be? You want to look at your authority. Now, you're going to build your authority over time in public relations areas, but how can you build that authority? Start creating that strategic plan now. Your reputation. What is your reputation in the network? And influence. It's a two-way street. So look at those people that influence you and become an influencer yourself. So that's your brief overview for your lesson for this week, and I hope you're able to join us for the question and answer session later on this week. If you have questions in the meantime, please feel free to let me know, and I'll be available to you. Hope you have a great rest of your week, y'all.